We are in the midst of what some have called the most important general election in a generation. While the majority of the focus has been on the presidential race, there are plenty of big races down the ticket, including the race in Oklahoma for Congressional District 5. And joining us live in studio is Madison Horn, Democratic candidate for U.S. House District 5 in Oklahoma, who is facing off against Republican incumbent Stephanie Bice. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. This district is traditionally Republican-led, very competitive, but Republican-led since 1975, with the exception of 2 years under Kendra Horn, who won in 2018. Also, a recent report shows that Bice's campaign has more than doubled the funding of your campaign. How do you address voters as you face this uphill battle?
Sure. So, let's talk about the district as a whole. Wildly diverse, wildly independent district as well. And if we look at Oklahoma as a state, very much independent thinking. If you talk to most Oklahomans, then they're entirely frustrated with the fact that special interest is pretty much in taking over politics. It's almost as if we have sold American democracy to the highest bidder. And so I think it's kind of, scrappy for us to say how much money we've raised. And also, if you want to talk about someone who's going to be good with money and we're going to win a campaign, then I think you want to kind of see how they're going to execute. And so I think it's easier to talk about than you think.
Okay, well, let's talk about this district. We have seen some changes. The district has gotten considerably more difficult for Democrats since the 2021 redistricting. We have a map of the Congressional District 5. In 2021, the Republican supermajority in the Oklahoma legislature significantly altered the competitive district by removing a large portion of the heavily Hispanic south side of Oklahoma City. The district now includes the counties of Oklahoma, Lincoln, Pottawatomie, Seminole, and parts of Canadian and Logan counties. What were your thoughts on that changes, and how did that change your strategy getting into those rural counties and connecting to those rural voters?
Sure. So, let's talk about where I'm from. I'm from Stillwell, Oklahoma. Yeah. I grew up as a farm kid. My dad was an ag teacher for 32 years. And so I think it's a little bit out of touch to say, like, well, how do you connect to rural Oklahoma? I'm from rural Oklahoma. Right. So I'm just talking to my former neighbors or the individuals who taught me in school. So I think it's a little out of touch, I think, for me to be able to say that. When I ran my race in 2022, then I traveled to all 77 counties. We did that almost 3 times. And we showed up in places like Hooker, Oklahoma, that people just don't go to because they don't see that it's worth the time and worth the investment. But when you look at, again, how diverse District 5 is and how rural in comparison to how urban it is, it's pretty evenly split. And so to me, it is not going to be that difficult. And I say that because if you look at 2022, when the lines that you're referring to were actually battle tested, look at other candidates that are talking about a moderate base, getting back to logic, getting back to balance. And I think that's what this district is looking for. And you saw a lot of success of candidates that were looking for just like that. And
to add to that, you have been a Republican for the majority of your life, only recently becoming a Democrat after Donald Trump come into office. And again, you have very rural roots.
Sure.
I want to talk also about your background in cybersecurity, which is a very unique background to have. You know, you have been a founding member of a private cybersecurity practice and also a leading member of another one. How does that change your policy?
I don't think it changes.
How does it steer your policy?
Sure. And no, I appreciate that because I wouldn't say that it changes anything. Me running with a cybersecurity background is one of the primary reasons why I am running. I spent 15 years of my life basically studying and tracking terrorist organizations and nation states and protecting critical infrastructure. And so what that allows me to do is understand the threats of today, and especially as we are looking at a geopolitical climate that is incredibly tumultuous, and the warfare is no longer on a battlefield. It is in cyberspace. Yeah. And to say that we are not at war, in a Cold War with China, then people aren't paying attention. And so my decision to run for office is because the things that keep me up at night, and this isn't tinfoil hat, is the fact that our energy sector is highly susceptible to an attack, and what is the potential impact to a state like Oklahoma, where that is one of our primary economic drivers, and what is that going to do to families here in Oklahoma? But not just that. If I am at 34 years old going to be the most credentialed cybersecurity lawmaker in US history. What does that mean to the individuals that we're electing? To me, it says that they're not qualified. We should have individuals in office that understand the modern times and the fact that technology underpins every single piece of our lives, and yet we don't have individuals at the highest powers of office that understand it and how to build policy around it. That's a huge gap. It's going to leave Oklahomans behind. It's going to leave the country behind when it comes to economic security, the way that we develop our workforce, the way that we protect kids online. I mean, it's across the gamut.
Specifically, in terms of policy, does it just require, I guess, more people in those chairs helping protect the nation?
When you say more people in those chairs who are qualified, yes, if that's what you're asking me. Because again, if we think about simple things, I believe this was about 4 months ago, that 2.93 million people were impacted by the Integris breach. So that's 2.93 million people whose healthcare data was compromised. And so what are we doing to ensure that individuals are taking responsibility for their own data privacy? And what are we doing to hold companies accountable? And no one knows how to solve that problem if they don't necessarily understand the impact.
One more question for
Sure.
you. One of the biggest stories, we're not short of headlines here in Oklahoma, is the Bible mandate. It's been very contentious among Democrats and even Republicans. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that this is a growing issue of bringing maybe the Bible or the Ten Commandments into public education?
Sure. Let's go back to the initial part of this conversation. I said that the rot in American politics right now is the fact that we've basically given our democracy up to the highest bidder. I think the other rot in American politics is partisan politics. It basically looks like a bunch of school kids kind of pointing fingers. Do you have kids?
Yeah,
like you see them argue. That's what our political landscape looks like. It's not effective. Do your kids solve problems when they're arguing?
No.
Yeah, okay. That's what this looks like. And it's embarrassing, frankly. And the reason why I bring that into the fold is because when you have 84% of children in Oklahoma who are not proficient in mathematics, excuse me, why are we spending $3 million potentially to ensure that we have Bibles in the classroom? This has nothing to do and nothing to push back against Christianity. It's the point that public education in our school systems are there to prepare kids for the future, and values and the way that people worship, that is something that is private and that is personal, and I don't believe that that's where public dollars should be spent.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. Madison Horn, thank you so much. I wish we could talk more. Folks at home, you can see this conversation on our website, and we're going to be talking to Stephanie Bice tomorrow, so you can check that out as well tomorrow. For now, let's turn things over to our forecast with Elliot Wilson.